So tonight is going to be my favorite meditation class. We're doing question and answer. And the standard disclaimer, this is not the gospel. These are not the answers that are set in stone somewhere, sent by God. This is just what I'm giving you tonight from my experience. And if you ask me again in 10 years, I'll give you a much better answer than I'm giving you tonight. But this is what I got for you tonight. So the questions should be something that has to do with something deep-ish. It doesn't have to be like, don't get paralyzed with fear. Is my question going to be accepted? Is it going to be the most impressive question that Sifu's ever heard? That's what I used to do when we did question and answer. I was like, I'm going to come up with the question that makes everybody in class and Sifu think that I'm the deepest, most thoughtful person on the planet. And usually I just failed miserably. Just ask about something that you've been wondering about. Ask about something that you've been dealing with in life, maybe in practice, maybe in meditation, whatever. So questions. Leah, I know you got something.
Should I ask first?
Yeah, yes, ask it.
Okay. Well, I have a deep question. Maybe it might take all the time, but
okay.
It's a question that Buddha could not answer, so therefore I'm asking
Oh,
you.
if Buddha couldn't answer it, I'll definitely be able to answer it. He probably couldn't answer it because he was trying to come up with a really great answer, and I'm just going to give you a crap answer. Go ahead. Perfect.
The question is, what is the purpose of suffering? On one hand, I believe it strengthens your character, but if you look at the question, suffering is based on perception, and if we change the perception, there's no suffering, and suffering is an illusion. The second question is, how do you change your perception?
Wait a minute. Okay. So did you answer the first part of your question or not? The question is, what is the purpose of suffering? And then you gave me several addendums. So addendum 1 is suffering can be used to build character, right? I'm going to take that part on first and say, build character, sure. It's kind of a Boy Scouty way of describing what we're really talking about, which is like making progress on a deep level, like a soul level, or like an evolving as a human being level, towards enlightenment level. So if we think of life as being school, then did anybody go to school and not suffer at all? Was anybody just show up and like everything is candy and roses and they just give you A's and everybody is happy and is kind to you? There's no bullies. Like, no. School, for some of us, was very, very much full of suffering, and for everybody, there was at least something, right? You have to try hard, study, and get better. And so, on some level, that is the purpose of suffering, is to give us something to get beyond. Now, if we also look at what is the cause of all suffering, the cause of all suffering is on some level, desire, right? We have desire that is not fulfilled. Or, because we're, human beings, we have desire that is fulfilled, and then we just want something else. So the cycle of desire that is either we're unfulfilled in some way is the cause, the root of suffering. And it might be even something as simple as the desire to be free of pain. And as all of us who are over 30 years old know, that's impossible. After you're, at a certain point in life, something hurts. And so it's not even possible to be free of pain unless you're just on drugs all the time, I guess. But that leads to its own suffering. So we have all of these opportunities. That's what I like to call these things that cause us to suffer. And that's not like the, deepest, most insightful stuff. I just copied Buddha answering some other question, I guess. That's not what he used to answer this question. But you look at it that way. Suffering has a purpose of giving us something to grow through, to evolve from. And we also do recognize, like you said in the second part of your question, or your second addendum, which is suffering is kind of like in the eye of the beholder. And I was talking about this with the kids earlier today. I asked them, is martial arts supposed to be easy? And they said, no. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable. There's supposed to be some suffering there. And I actually asked martial arts and being uncomfortable, and how does martial arts help us deal with being uncomfortable? And one of the kids said, because we recognize the difference between pain and suffering, sir. And I said, absolutely. And it's because we get to recognize that pain is a foregone conclusion. It will happen. But suffering, in this definition at least, suffering is what we make it mean. So suffering is like when I take the pain personally, and when I start to ask, when is this going to end, and why is this happening to me? So that's where we get into the idea that it's perception. It's my attitude towards the pain that allows it to become or creates the suffering, or is unattached and just lets it go. So I suffer from pain, for example, if we use that, because I have the desire to be free of pain, and because I see pain as something that is like something that I must do something about, or something that's a personal affront to me. Whereas if I see pain and have a different kind of relationship with it, where I recognize that this is just something that's there for me to listen to and recognize I should be doing something different with my body. Or, emotional pain. This pain is there to serve a purpose, to help me realize that I need to do something different with my relationships, or whatever it is that I'm dealing with that causes that pain. And so if you look at pain as a tool, or you look at pain as like a light in your car, when you're out of gas and the light goes on and says, you need more gas. You don't look at that light and say, what the hell is going on here? Where did my gas go? Did somebody siphon it out of my tank? What's the deal with this car using gas? Like, you know that it's going to happen. And so the light goes on and you say, okay, time to do something about that. That's one way of looking at pain. And it's very different from what most of us do. So that's a simple kind of answer, I guess, that you could have probably come to by yourself. But the real thing at issue here is not knowing that or understanding that that's how suffering works. It's actually doing something about it, and being able to have this kind of attitude, not just on a philosophical level, but in a practical sense. What do I do when suffering happens? When pain happens, how do I actually deal with it? And if we deal with it immediately and correctly, whatever correctly is, or if we deal with it well, we respond well to pain, then it doesn't take over and become suffering. So this is what we practice. This is what we practice in classes, what we practice in meditation, is being able to recognize this early and often, and be able to take whatever the appropriate action is. So the thing to look at here is, what have I been doing historically? What have I trained myself to do? What's like my automatic response to pain or to suffering? And what do I want it to be? So then what am I training myself to do instead of what I always have done? And that is something. That's going to really take some work and some mindfulness and awareness. Other question? And if anybody out in the internet world has questions, you can ask them too. And Jay, if you have a question, you can ask too. Yes, ma'am.
How do you let go of thinking that you're doing things the right way?
How do you let go? This is a question that I have a hard time with. How do you let go of thinking that you're doing things the right way? And everyone else doing it differently is obviously doing it the wrong way. So Jay just got a little bit closer for this. She's like, I need to know about this one. So if you're interested in this, it means that you're doing something right. If you're not, and you think, oh, I don't have a problem with that, then you don't even know that you have a problem. But this is what we do as human beings. And some you can look at it also as like a spectrum where some of us always think that we're doing it right, and then there are certainly others who always think that they're doing it wrong, whatever it is. But it all is kind of wrapped up in the ego, right? So One of my favorite things to talk about and make fun of my students for is, we take Tai Chi class as an example because it's the one that I think of the most often. I come over to make a correction to somebody, and they immediately get in defensive mode. It's like I say, oh, make sure that when you're doing this, your hand is crossing at the wrist rather than close to the elbow. And they immediately say, oh, the last person who taught me said that it's supposed to go by the elbow, or something like that. And I can see it on your face, and I can hear it in your voice, and see it in your body language. You're like, and it's because being wrong is so painful and full of suffering for us. It is, on some level, it is akin to dying. It's like we think that we are under attack, and the ego has to really get right in here and deal with it and defend by being very forceful against it. We don't like to be wrong, because being wrong means, according to the ego, according to the small self, it means that basically, like, you're dead, right? It's like when the ego is in charge, everything is super dramatic, and everything is like, I can't believe this is happening to me right now. So on the deeper level, or one of the deepest levels, I guess, the way that you deal with this is just not associate with the ego and not deal with this kind of a situation. Somebody gives you a suggestion or a fix for a technique, for example, in class. You recognize right away, my ego is coming up to the front, and it's going to tell this person what I think, and you can recognize that. And sometimes you'll recognize it literally from like what your body does and what kind of physical sensations you have. And then you can allow that to go and just say, yes, sir. Because that's the only appropriate response in the dojo to a senior student, or especially me, giving you a correction. It's not, oh, but the last person said, oh, but yeah, what I'm trying to do is actually this. No, it's always, yes, sir. Or if it's a woman who's a senior student, yes, ma'am. That's it. And then you go back to work, and you always take on what they are suggesting and ask yourself, is that something that I really need to work on? The answer is usually yes. Whether, or like maybe the person who's giving you the correction is actually mistaken. It's possible. Not usually likely, but possible. But still ask yourself, like, if I'm in front of the class and I yell, hands up, there are two kinds of people. There's a kind of person who says, my hands are up. And there's the other person who asks, could my hands be in a better position right now? And that person usually already had their hands up because they're paying attention and they have the right kind of attitude towards practice, but they still try to fine-tune where their hands are. The first kind of person that goes, my hands are up, like you're not getting it. You're not where you're supposed to be right now mentally in class. So that's kind of how it happens in the dojo. But this happens in all areas of life. If you are not consistently being challenged in a way that makes you ask yourself, am I doing this right or not, then your life is super boring and you're not going to get anywhere. Like, you have to constantly be challenging yourself or have people around you who challenge you. So you can treat it kind of like I was saying in the first question. You can treat it like this is school. And I always have to be asking the right questions, and oftentimes the best questions are going to come from somebody else offering something to me. Somebody else getting in my face, or so it seems to my ego, and saying, you're doing this wrong. And recognizing that maybe there is something for me to improve upon in this. And it should not take somebody getting in your face, or even somebody saying anything to you. You should be able to ask yourself, I'm in class in a group doing Tai Chi, and I look at somebody else in the mirror and I see, oh, they're doing something different. Your reaction can be, they're doing it wrong, I'm right, because that's what the ego needs you to believe. Or your reaction to that could be, the other side of it, oh, I'm messing it up, about they're doing it right and I'm doing it wrong and I'm terrible at everything. Or your reaction could be, that's interesting. That's something I should look at. And you see how that's free of ego. It's really just approaching things from a perspective of, that's interesting. And if you can really get that to be the first thought that comes into your head, then you can look at it from a different place, a place of actually being interested and kind of it's fun that way, right? Rather than always having to be fighting against it one way or the other. So maybe just train yourself to say, that's interesting, and see what comes next, right? Ask yourself, what can I look at? How can I explore this further from a perspective of being interested rather than having to fight against it? And oftentimes, the language that we use is really powerful. And so you'll recognize a thought that usually has some kind of a language involved with it comes into your head. And that thought is either something like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me, I have to fight against it. Or that thought is something more like, that's interesting. So try that. Other question. Thomas.
I'm sure everybody has some idea about what does the meditation means, but
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean for you? So in your life, how it's implemented in your life, the meditation.
What does meditation mean to me for my life? It means nothing. And it's so important to have nothing from time to time, because our lives, especially in the world that we live in today, and I'm going to sound like a crotchety old man for a minute, but even especially in LA. I mean, you drive down the street and your radio is blasting and everyone else's radio is blasting, and you've got billboards and lights flashing at you and people crashing. I mean, we can't sit here in the dojo for more than 5 minutes without sirens going by. And it's just, there's always an opportunity to have something filling up our consciousness and pulling us away from the moment. So nothing is like one of the best gifts that you can get from practice, from meditation, that you can give to yourself. It's like just taking a break from it all. And I started this kind of martial arts practice at 17 years old, 17, 18. And I had practiced other martial arts before. There was no meditation, there was no mindfulness or internal anything. It was just like basic taekwondo, super vanilla, like competition base, and not terrible, but not what we do here. And then I started this kind of practice, and just before that, like the last year of high school, leading up to it, I had developed what I will call like a stress disorder of the stomach. I had a really mild version of acid reflux. And I did not think of myself, and I don't think anybody in the world who knew me thought of me as being a stressed individual. Because I didn't care about anything and I didn't try at anything, and it was all just like, I don't really care. I didn't try hard in school, I didn't try hard at anything else. If I was on a sports team, I would give it the minimal effort. And I started getting this, it's called gastritis, which is just buildup of like the gastrointestinal acid that basically starts to give you a sore throat and a stomachache. And I took medication for it for this long because I was almost at the same time starting to practice martial arts and starting to meditate. And they gave me this medication and they said, you're going to take this and you're going to take it for a long time, you're going to take it all the time. And I took it for a month or two, maybe 3. And right around that time I had started meditating. And I dove into meditation and I started meditating every day. And pretty early on I was meditating 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, consistently. Stopped taking my medication, gone, disappeared. I had no stomach issues at all. And my stress that I wasn't even aware of had gone. And so on some level, I had, maybe even subconsciously, just like all these thoughts just rolling around in my head constantly, and some kind of concern, anxiety about whatever was going on, even though I didn't outwardly seem to care, and I would not have even thought of myself as being somebody that cared. I did. And at the same time, I also had acne. Not terrible, but bad enough that it stressed the hell out of me, subconsciously apparently, at that age, because it's, everything is really important to you when you're in high school. And I started meditating, and within a couple of months, gone, cleared up completely. And so these physical ailments that I had, which are, nothing compared to what most people experience in life, but it was still something. I had just hard proof. This is what meditation does, and I apparently had stress, and now I meditate, and now it's gone, and that's it. And that's all superficial, like really not very important. I would still survive today if I had, acid reflux and I had acne. But really what I got out of meditation is being able to, on a day-to-day level, practically speaking, choose my thoughts, choose my emotional state, be able to decide how I want to be. And this is, a total game changer. It's like you're living a totally different life when you recognize this. I get to choose how I am going to be. And this is really what our practice does for us. But that nothingness is how you get that, because you can't go from being stressed or pissed off or sad or whatever directly to happiness, or directly to however you choose that you want to be. You have to go from this state that you're in, accept it, recognize it, and then let it go. Let it drop away into nothing. And then you get to choose what to fill in that space of nothingness that you've created. And so meditation gives us that. If we are actually dealing with something right now that's really rough, now we get to sit, breathe, and create this space and let everything else drop away, and then fill that up with whatever we want to on a consciousness level, on an emotion level. And then on a higher level than that, even, I would say that meditation and martial arts in general, but certainly meditation has given me a reason for living. And it's not like I was suicidal before practice, but I didn't have a reason. I wasn't even a ship without a sail. I was a ship. I wasn't a ship blowing in the wind. I was a ship without a sail, which I just maybe made that up. But it's like I just, bobbing up and down on the waves, and something happens in life and it knocks me this way, and something happens in life and it knocks me this way, and it's just like, however it is, okay, life happens to me. But then with this kind of philosophy that goes along with our meditation, we recognize like there's some place to get to. There's some higher state of consciousness. There's some enlightenment. There is something that we want to strive for. And I did not have that before. And so that's what I have. I have nothingness. And nothing on the highest, deepest level is really what I strive for day to day. And it gives me structure too. There's something really nice about doing something every single day. And I did not have that either before practice and before meditation. But now I've got something, and it's like I know that I can handle much more in life, and I know that I can accomplish much more because I've got a thing that I do, and I have done it every day for 18 years, meditation. And that's it seems kind of mundane because what are you talking about? I brush my teeth every day. I bet there's a day that you miss brushing your teeth. You were camping or flying across the country or something. But I never miss meditation. And it's a little bit more meaningful, I guess, for me than brushing my teeth. Any other question? I'm thinking it's got to be a quick one. No other questions. So, I'll just riff on this one. You don't have to have the same reason behind your practice as me. In fact, you should not have the exact same reason as me. My reason for practice is at least slightly different from Sifu Brown's. What I get out of it is at least slightly different from what all of you guys should get out of it. But if there's not something important and meaningful and real for you, you will not do it. And honestly, I don't blame you. If you're just showing up here because I tell you to, and you're just meditating because like, well, I'm supposed to, then you're not going to do it, and you won't get anything out of it, and you may as well just quit. So let's not do that. Come up with something. Come up with whatever it is, and it could be simple. It could be just like, I want to have a better relationship with this person, or it could be, I want to clear up my acne or whatever. Like, have something that is real for you, that is a reason, and then go back to it, because meditation is easy for no one. I mean the act of meditation, and I mean the consistency and the act of being able to go back to it and have this like a real part of your life. So choose something. And this is a beautiful time in a lot of your practice, like being newer. You get to choose, and it can be anything. And then it's going to grow and evolve over time. But start with something real, something that matters to you, and recognize the ways in which your practice and your meditation can improve your life in that area, whatever it is. Sit comfortably.